To what extent do you think that Australia's weakness towards Muslim extremism, Islamic extremism, and indeed Britain's weakness is responsible for these atrocities?
I think the angle here is for us to look at what happened in Bondi Beach and to ask a very important question. Have the Islamist extremist terrorists gotten stronger and the potential terrorists living amongst us in the West gotten stronger, or have we gotten weaker as a civilized society? And if you make the claim that democracies are still strong, then why is it that from Australia to Europe to Washington, D.C., democracy is being used by Islamist extremists through votes and funding to attain seats in parliaments and Congress, and then push the global Islamist pro-global caliphate agenda by weakening the family, weakening policies that protect our countries, whether it be strong borders, stronger immigration laws, whether it be surveilling ISIS sympathizers, and so on. So I think the answer to these two questions is that the West has allowed democracy to be abused in the name of democracy.
Fascinating viewpoint, and I would agree with you. The Muslim Brotherhood, many believe that this is a haven of Islamic extremism. It's an organisation that here in Britain many critics call for to be prohibited, but it's not. Now, here's the list of countries that have banned the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and recently Jordan have joined the gang. In the West, the only country in the West to ban the Muslim Brotherhood is Austria. We haven't banned them. Australia hasn't banned them. Why is it that Muslim countries have found the resolve to ban this outfit, to prohibit this allegedly extremist group, and Western countries, which, let's face it, are probably more threatened by people in the Muslim Brotherhood than Muslim countries, but we haven't? Why have Muslim countries done it, but Western democracies continue to tolerate the Muslim Brotherhood?
Because in the Middle East, it is a security question to ban them, but in the West, it is a political question. They look at how many votes they will lose when they ban these extremist elements, and they say it's not worth it. They want to stay in power. In the Middle East, the Muslim Brotherhood is well understood, and it is foolish to think that Western democracies understand the Muslim Brotherhood threat more than we do. Now, let me just explain to the viewers what the Muslim Brotherhood is. It is the mother organization for Al-Qaeda, for ISIS, for Hamas. It's basically the organization that Osama bin Laden subscribed to. It is what gave us 9/11 and October 7 and everything in between. So anyone that wants to just ban ISIS and just ban Al-Qaeda and do nothing about the mother organization, the umbrella organization, the cancer, playing with fire, simply does not care about the national security of their own country. Now, in the UAE, for example, not only do they designate the Muslim Brotherhood and its members and leaders and organizations and ban them outright, they actually go into the West and warn the UK that here are 8 organizations in the UK that we have designated as terrorist entities as a favor to the British people. In return, the UK allows these organizations to continue with their incorporations and charity listings and to fundraise and to support candidates and operate normally as though they are really a charity. The Muslim Brotherhood is a nation. It is just under 100 years old. These people do not think in 4-year terms. In the West, we have politicians who think in 4-year terms. So they are worried about what they will do in 4 years before the next election and then try to guarantee the upcoming election. The Muslim Brotherhood does not think in 4-year terms. They think in 100-year terms. They're planning for another 100 years. The damage we see today was planned for 100 years ago. And I think it's very foolish to allow the Muslim Brotherhood not only to operate within society, but to be the face of Islam to the West. So they were advising the White House during the time of Obama, and they are today advising governments across Europe, including in Australia. I mean, I am an Australian citizen. The Grand Mufti, the top Muslim cleric in Australia today, just 10 years ago was hanging out with Hamas, saying that he had come to the land of jihad to learn from the sons of jihad. What are you going to learn from them? Algebra? Mathematics? What is there in Gaza for you to learn? AI, for example? What were you bringing back to Australia? And then people wonder, why do Muslims get blamed? Muslims don't get blamed. It is Muslim leadership that people turn to and don't find a responsible answer. It is these spineless politicians that allow these people to be the face of the religion. A religion, you know how big that is? You know, we're not talking about a company. We're not talking about a small organization. A religion. To be the face of that religion in your massive continent is, number one, a disgrace and also a failure of policy. And it shows you do not take national security seriously and you just want to stay in power. And that is the end result of it. You have Muslim Brotherhood ideology being brought in to Australia, and we see the results of that where innocent people were massacred. This is a community very dear to my heart. I was speaking to the family members of those victims immediately after the attack. This is a community that helped me become the person I am today. When we talk about bridge building, coexistence, these need to be part of our conversation. Not just tolerance, because the law prevents us attacking each other, but peace and harmony on a human level. On a human level. This is what we need. This is what is missing in our society.
Here.
I think the recognition of a Palestinian state needs to be looked at more realistically. The Western nations that recognized Palestine did not do so for the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
They did so because Trump said he was going to take Gaza and rebuild it. And in response to Trump's decision and statements, they said, well, we better race and make sure Trump does not get to do that. We will recognize a state and make it difficult for him, create more obstacles. Now, the point here is not Trump, and the point here is not the recognition of a Palestinian state. The point is that what they did was very swift, very reactionary, and not in the interest of the Palestinian people. Before you recognize a Palestinian state, you need to see what the direction and mood of Muslim states are with regards to a Palestinian state. And the policy in the Middle East is very, very clear. There cannot be a Hamas in power. So Hamas cannot be the recipient of this award, and they cannot be the ones who take credit for this recognition. Should there be a recognition of a Palestinian state by the UK and other democracies? It cannot be counted as a win for the Muslim Brotherhood, which unfortunately is exactly what happened. Why? Because they did not want Trump to have a smooth transition into Gaza. Now, whether Trump's statements were right or wrong are neither here nor there. I understand Trump's and America's position in the Middle East, and I understand that they would always work with partners in the Gulf, because decisions with regards to Islam and the Muslim world happen in Abu Dhabi and happen in Riyadh, the UAE and Saudi Arabia. They don't happen in Tehran. They certainly don't happen in Gaza. And they most certainly don't only happen in Washington, D.C. So not making use of the wisdom of the rulers in the Middle East, who have been the main ones backing the humanitarian causes in the Middle East and cutting them out and saying that you will operate in a way you see fit. I mean, the UK has its own extremism problem. France has its own extremism problem. For them to now pave the way for extremists in the Middle East to the throne, because Hamas is not a democratic organization, they're the paramilitary arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah. To give them such an award is to basically be part in more bloodshed in the Middle East in the future.
It make you feel when those two guys, for example, in Australia, the father and the son, somehow corrupted by some strange extremist philosophy, go and do what they did, open with rifles, open fire on innocent Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah on Bondi Beach. How does that make you feel?
not only do we weep for the victims and stand in solidarity with our Jewish brothers and sisters who are part of the Abrahamic family, but I will tell you this, there are repercussions for allowing imams to preach on pulpits every week, preach hatred against Jews, call them pigs and monkeys, and to basically blame them for every single thing happening in the world. From COVID to Gaza, I mean, we've all seen the videos of the chants, gas the Jews, around Sydney Opera House. That happened on the 8th of October and the 9th of October. Israel hadn't even responded yet to try and blame Israel for this. I think it's very important that we put our finger on the antisemitism that is elimination level. It's one thing to say they hate Jews. It's another thing when they want them dead and massacred in the way we see in Australia. So first and foremost, imams need to be held responsible and accountable for what they preach. There needs to be laws that simply treat them in the manner they would be treated in the Muslim world. You cannot call for death and bloodshed in the Muslim world. There are serious consequences for that, but there seems to be the opposite for that in the West, right? Whenever someone like me speaks about peace and coexistence and harmony, then they must be a fake Muslim. And if I start to whine and complain about Islamophobia, then I need to be heard and given the time to speak. Why? Because I'm a brown Muslim and you need to feel sorry for me, and that's the right way democracy needs to operate. No, that is a foolish way. I don't need special treatment. I want to be treated in the same way every other citizen is being treated. And I need to behave myself, number one, and not bully ministers and politicians to give me special treatment. Because this is exactly what happens. When you ask for special treatment and you get it, then simply laws are no longer enforced, and these corrupt imams got away with hate preaching so much that this is not the first terrorist attack that we have seen in Australia, unfortunately.
Imam of Peace. Some of you may know his story, some of you may not. But I often talk about this real void when it comes to strong Muslim voices who are condemning this terrorism, this evil, murders and deaths, who hate it and aren't afraid to call it out. Well, that describes him to a T. And I'll tell you something he said as well. He brought up Islamophobia, and I need you to see his response to that. He was scathing. And he's absolutely right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please meet the Imam of Peace. I'd now like to introduce you to my next guest, Imam Tawhidi, who is otherwise known as the Imam of Peace, an incredible human being who does the most phenomenal work. It's such a pleasure to welcome you to the show. I wish it were under better circumstances.
Hello, Aaron. Great to be with you today. Thank you for having me.
Imam, what was your initial reaction to the horrors that have unfolded here in Bondi and Sydney, Australia?
Speechless, heartbroken, shattered. The Jewish community of Sydney is very, very dear to my heart. They've had an impact on me personally during my development in Australia. I share wonderful moments and history with that community, especially Chabad Sydney. This is a community that's like family to me. And before this interview, I was on the phone with Rabbi Yossi from Texas, whose son, Rabbi Label, was shot and wounded in the terrorist attack in Bondi. And his son is the assistant of the rabbi who was murdered. So I think now is not only a time of unity, but also a time of accountability. And positions need to be clear. There cannot be statements coming from political leaders that do not mention the word Jews, terrorism, calling it for what it was, and does not mention Hanukkah. You know, referring to this as an unfortunate incident or things to that effect. You know, that's what you use to describe being stuck behind the train and missing a meeting. You don't use that type of language when over 10 people have been killed until now, and the numbers continue to rise from the ages of 10 years old to 87. At the end of the day, regardless of where I travel around the world, I am an Australian. And this pain is Jewish pain. And they need to be respected. And it cannot be hijacked by the Islamophobia industry, who comes out, and they've come out immediately after the attack saying, report Islamophobia, because this attack is going to cause Islamophobia. We need to respect the Jewish community and give them the time to grieve and stand with them in solidarity. And anyone hijacking that needs to be opposed. And I thank you for allowing me to open with this.
Thank you. You are phenomenal. You've just nailed the crux of it so eloquently. So people understand, because there's going to be a lot of people who aren't aware of your story, who are blown away by who you are and what you stand for. Tell us who you are, what religion you are, and how you have somehow managed to just see this for what it is, which is good versus evil.
My name is Muhammad, first name. My second name is Tawhidi. I am a cleric, a theologian. I specialize in Islamic law. I was ordained in Iran in the Islamic Seminary of Qom in 2010. I currently serve as a governing member at the Global Imams Council. It is headquartered, the Western Division is headquartered in Toronto, Canada. The Middle Eastern Division is headquartered in the Islamic city of Najaf, the Holy Seminary of Najaf in Iraq. We are a council of 1,600 plus imams from all schools of thought and denomination. I'm currently in our Western headquarters, and I am also an Australian citizen. Previously, I was a fundamentalist. I held views that many would categorize as extremist, but you would expect nothing other than that if you're trained in Iran. And so I thank God for allowing me to see the light, and that I made the best decision in my life to withdraw myself from Al-Mustafa University, which is the hub for extremist IRGC curriculum, and I moved to Iraq. There I continued my advanced studies, and then ISIS took over in 2014. They were 2 hours away from me. We lost family members.
Sorry.
It wasn't safe. I returned back to Australia with the understanding that ISIS and all extremism needed to be confronted. And so I began speaking out, and I was called an Islamophobe. You asked me about my faith. I'm a Muslim. I am not a convert to Islam, with all due respect to converts. I am the descendant of the companions of the Holy Prophet. I descend from the lineage of Adi bin Hatim al-Ta'i, who was one of the early Muslims who sided side by side with our Prophet. I'm an Arab from the tribe of Tai, which is one of the most prominent Arabian tribes ever to exist. I say this to say that Islam is my religion. God spoke to us in our language, and I'm not prepared to see some converted extremist hijack my Quran, my book, my Prophet, my religion, because they have a Muslim Brotherhood political agenda. That was my attitude in Australia, and I was met with the anger of mainstream media, who labeled me as everything that I'm not. And, you know, now we see, well, over the last 10 years, we've seen that everything I had warned about was not only accurate, it was timely, it was ignored, and now they're paying the price. What I gained, however, is the trust of the Australian public, who saw that I was not after fame and money and power, and I did not run for office. In fact, I remained a volunteer in a charity this entire time, and I did nothing but warn from an ideology that ultimately has destroyed the Middle East, Iraq, where I originally am from, and I did not want that to happen in Australia. That's the message I carry. Also, accompanied with a message of peace, coexistence, harmony, solidarity, and the bonds between the Abrahamic family of Jews, Muslims, and Christians together. I'm also a resident in the UAE and an official advisor there on counterterrorism, because that is my profession. I hold a master's degree in Islamic studies and a master's degree in counterterrorism. And so I combine both. It's very important that I mention this, because many would question, why am I countering extremists? when other imams do not. I am well within my lane to do so.
I often talk about this, and the reason I love you so much, I grew up in Indonesia, the world's largest Islamic nation. I speak the language fluently. I love that country. I love its people. The government, particularly prior to the current president, eradicated all but Islamic extremism in such an incredible way, and they did it double-pronged with really tough penalties and indoctrination. They focused heavily on it. I say to people, my fight against this extremism is as much for Muslim children born as it is for any other child in the world. And they will say to me privately, we are hurt by this more than anyone. So it should be normal that strong, staunch, devout Muslims stand against this. We just don't see it enough. Your voice is so powerful here. So powerful.
Thank you, Erin. I should also mention that when I was being attacked by people with bad intentions in Australia in the media, later it was discovered that they were paid by the Muslim Brotherhood one way or another. The old classic of ordering several thousand copies of their books via Amazon, and that's how they get their royalties, in exchange for attempting to character assassinate me, and that failed really well. At the end of the day, if God is on your side, nothing can stop you. But I want to say the only community that saw what was happening with me was the Jewish community.
Yeah.
And specifically the Australian Jewish Association, and specifically Dr. David Adler. He saw exactly what was happening. I was condemning Hamas, condemning ISIS, and I was being discredited by the Imams councils in the country. And so the invitation came out from Sydney, the same community that has been impacted today, and I visited them. I went to Bondi, and there I met with Chabad Sydney, and the story is well known in Australia that I stayed up many hours after the event, texting with a rabbi up until 3 a.m. And so we bonded. There was a phenomenal brotherly relationship between us, and I am determined to making sure that the Jewish community in Australia has not only a Muslim voice, but a Muslim voice that is not afraid of the extremists. I don't want to describe myself as being courageous, but this is my religious duty and my responsibility. And I lead this council in this direction and with this line of thinking, that the extremists cannot be allowed to operate without criticism, and claims of Islamophobia after October 7, as we've seen, and after such tragedies should be met with criticism, because there is legitimate anti-Muslim bigotry, but this is not it. This is a nation that is upset. I'll tell you this, and this is what I've learned and what I've lived through. The West, with Australia in focus now because of the current development, the West in general does not care if you are Arab, or if you're Persian, or if you are white or black. The West does not care if you believe in one God or 50 gods. The West does not care what food you eat and what music you listen to. They will begin to care when your ideology, your Islamist fundamentalist ideology, calls for their beheading, for the overthrowing of democracy, for the wiping out of human rights, basic freedoms, women's rights. That's when they will start to care. And this disgust with certain Muslim communities is very valid, because they don't hate me. Why is it when I show up in Bondi and these areas, I am met with hugs and praised for work, because I want peace. I want to see coexistent and we build bridges. But yes, if you're going to carry a extremist Al-Qaeda flag through their communities and then follow it with weapons and gun them down, they're going to hate you. And they're going to hate the community you belong to. And you know what? We join them. I will join them in hating the Islamist, extremist, Muslim Brotherhood fanatic. And I stand by them, because that is the nature of being a pure human being. You love what is good and you hate what is evil.
It's not complex, is it, Imam? It is for so many people. It shouldn't be. What do you make of the Australian government? And I have been incredibly critical of failure after failure after failure. And I say a lack of moral courage, but I think you're courageous. I don't think it required courage from them to do what is right. That is their job. We put them in office to protect us and our way of life, and they have failed.
I think this requires morals more than courage.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a prime minister or a president to say the truth. It requires morals to be able to distinguish between what is politically right and wrong and what is morally right and wrong. Today, the politicians think it is politically wrong to call out the communities these extremist terrorists, which is exactly what they are, came out of. They find it to be a political risk. Why? Because they speak the language of votes and money. And that is the lowest way to live your life, being dominated by power and making sure that no one takes this chair of leadership from you. Real leadership is when you are able to express yourself in the way that your heart sees things and believes so. I don't think the Prime Minister of Australia doesn't know that this was a massacre of Jews on Hanukkah. I don't think he doesn't know this targeted Jews and it was carried out by Islamist extremists. He knows very well. But it's not cowardice. It's lack of morals. I think rewarding the Palestinians with a Palestinian state gets you exactly this. It was wrong to do so because these are the very people that came out supporting October 7, then followed it up with chants around the Opera House saying gas the Jews. These are the exact same people. If you want to say this is free speech, fine, do so. And then you have ASIO, which of course will come out and say they were on a watch list. They were known to us, right? And you'll hear this around the world in UK, in Australia, in Europe. Whenever there's a terrorist attack, they were known to us. What does a watch list mean? What does a watch list mean? What does that mean? It means you're watching them carry out terrorist attacks? Yeah. What does that mean? There are no watch lists in Dubai. There's no watch list in Saudi Arabia. There's no watch list in Bahrain. If you're a threat, you're out.
Yes.
It's very simple. That's Muslim logic.
Point. Why do we give people chances the first time they show us what they might be capable of? Sorry, I'm not willing to take the risk. I don't want my daughter to take the risk. Get them out.
And I don't think it's a mystery because when we speak about the Middle East, we're not talking about something in Mars or on Pluto.
Yeah.
It's happening here. People transit from Australia to the Middle East and they spend a few days there and they see exactly how safe it is. Why is it so safe? Because extremists are not allowed to wave the Al-Qaeda flag in the UAE. You can't do that in Saudi Arabia. You can't open up a Facebook page in Saudi Arabia and support the Muslim Brotherhood. That's not going to happen. And you can call it democracy and free speech and people have the right to express their views. With all due respect, if your view is to behead me, then I will make sure you do not exist in the same society that I exist in. It's as simple as that. This is Muslim logic. This is the logic of the rulers in the Middle East.
Muslim countries are better, most of them are better at this than anyone. Yet Western countries feel like they know better. And apologies, you can hear the chopper ahead. Imam, I'm going to have to go, but I want to end this on a note. I want to know from you, what is the solution here? How does the Australia that my dad went to war to protect, that was willing to risk his life for, how do we claw that back? This is a collective response that's required. We can't rely on our politicians because they'll let us down.
I believe there is no one solution here. I think different people from different professions need to step up. But I think from a social perspective, there needs to be the amplification of Muslim voices who are anti the extremists. Why? Because the extremists are a minority. They are a minority. They showed us their full force after October 7. A couple of thousand people here and there. You don't see 1 million, 2 million flooding the streets in support of Hamas. So that's good. You have a minority. This minority has money. They have the luxurious mosques. They have the votes. Why? Because certain political parties have agreed that we will make them the face of the Muslim community.
Yeah.
The real face of the Muslim community needs to be supported, needs to be visited, and you will find not just refreshing voices, you'll find brothers in those communities, people who will stand with you. And these are people we have in our council and we work with daily. So that's on a social level. Secondly, on a more legal level, there needs to be legal action from citizens against certain charities, organizations, for what they teach, for what they preach. If an imam around you gets on a pulpit and calls for death and preaches hate, sue him, silence him, get them to apologize. Anyone can do that. We have human rights commissions for a reason. They need to be utilized. And the list goes on, of course. But for the limited time we have, I say the advice I would give to Australians right now, do not stay silent. Because after this settles, the politicians will join hands with the extremists to come out and silence you. Do not stay silent no matter what. Point the finger at every corrupt politician and corrupt imam, and know that you will have people like lions with you, and we will not back down. Thank you.
Beautifully said, Imam. Thank you for everything that you do. You are, because my love for Indonesia and so many Muslims there who I grew up with is so strong. I'm yelling for more Muslim voices. They are so powerful. Yours is the top of that list. Thank you.
And as the Indonesians say, terima kasih.
Kembali Pak, kembali. Terima kasih banyak. Sampai nanti.
Okay. Thank you.
Amazing.
Bye.
Let's be honest, this property is pretty ugly, and it's also tiny at just 97 square meters. But here's the thing, intelligent investors know that you need to look beyond just what you see at face value to look at the numbers to work out whether or not this could be the right property for you. Now, I'm not suggesting that it is, but what I am suggesting is the only way you can truly know is by using the Apex Report, a free tool that we've developed that helps you to analyze the purchasing costs and the performance of any property anywhere in the country. And this is the only way that you will become a successful investor, is by looking at the numbers first to make sure you don't get caught flat-footed. All of it is variable, so you can be in control of how you can see and manage your own future, which is pretty powerful. This is probably the best tool that I've ever seen that actually can do all of this stuff to give you the right optics to know whether or not you should buy a property. And if you want to get your own copy of the Apex Report for free, all you need to do is click the link, put in your details, and get your free copy right now.
Like as fresh dog food gets delivered to your door. We make it easy to give your pup great nutrition without slowing you down. Pre-portioned and snap frozen for freshness, all you have to do is defrost, peel open and serve. This could be your dog. Search Like It today.
Isn't he a phenomenal human being? And as much as we can elevate his voice, we should. So please share this far and wide, whether you're listening on YouTube, on the podcast, watching on YouTube, however you consume this show, please share it far and wide, because his voice must be heard, and it must be heard by Muslims. I want every Muslim person who doesn't believe in the death and destruction under their name to watch and listen and learn, because he is amazing. My next guest, his name is Yishay Ishron, and he is a former IDF soldier who wrote a book. And he talks about his dog and this process and this journey of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's something that so many of our brave men and women who serve in the military, whether it's in Australia, in America, or in Israel, fighting against a horrific enemy, often when they come home, that's when the real battle begins. And that's saying something, given what they see out there in the battlefield and what they face. So I think we need to be really conscious of the fact that a lot of our brave heroes come home and we say, oh, he survived, that's amazing. But then the suffering really, really starts. So this is a quick conversation, but I think it's a really, really important one. Ishi, thank you so very much for joining me on the Aaron Molan Show, and far more importantly, for your service, not just to your nation of Israel, but to the entire West, all the people who believe in peace, freedom, democracy, and all the things that really matter. I genuinely say thank you.
Well, thank you, Irene. I'm grateful to be in your show and to put some, important issue of PTSD and mental health issues in general, but PTSD among veterans, which is an epidemic worldwide, and especially I know it from Israel.